Hi, I'm Lotta Werner Friborg, CEO of Sweden Green Building Council. The Swedish public has begun to gain a more general interest and knowledge of sustainability and of the climate issue. Even our largest news program on television has recurring themes about the climate change. And we often think that our society already is green enough, but the new EU taxonomy challenges some of our industries. For example, the energy industry with district heating and our forestry with rapid turnover of trees. When looking at the real estate sector, we can see that the use of certification schemes for commercial property owners has become a hygiene factor, at least in the bigger cities, and is now starting to affect even residential buildings. But the big challenge is not new construction, where many of the property owners already have good ambitions, but instead how we take on the existing property portfolio. Everyone wants good, but the effect must be clear and measurable, and it's important to be able to demonstrate real environmental benefit in certification schemes. There will be new important areas such as access to clean water and good locations with less risk of flooding. Working to minimize climate change is risk management for the entire real estate industry. We also see new requirements from the authorities, such as new rules for those who produce construction and demolition waste, to sort out certain types of waste and store them separately from each other and from other waste for the purpose that recycling can increase. And as Matti mentioned before, there is even a new law for climate declarations in January 2022 that will affect climate reporting when constructing new buildings with the purpose to reduce climate impact from the construction phase. Our procurement authority has developed proposals for requirements that can be used in design assignments and contracts for large roads and constructions, which will contribute to giving less climate impact from a life cycle perspective. And there's also many suppliers that run their sustainability work for competitive reasons. And here are some examples. One of the major companies offers green concrete that halves carbon dioxide emissions. A framework contractor offers climate positive concrete frames. There's a large vehicle manufacturer that now manufactures big electric construction machines. And Katarina showed you one of these in Oslo. And the steel industry is creating a fossil-free value chain through a new steel production technology that replaces coal with fossil-free electricity and hydrogen. And we are many who work for this change. And in our Nordic cooperation of GBCs, we try and we work to spread the knowledge and good examples across our borders. So that's a short insight from Sweden. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I'm next in line, Mette Kvist from Green Building Council Denmark. And I can easily add on to what Lotta said in Sweden. It's also applicable in Denmark. There's in the society a growing awareness that the agenda of sustainability is dynamic and needs to be approached by all of us. And but of course, I'll focus mostly on the construction industry now. And in Denmark, there's a holistic approach to sustainability that is very important. And that was the reason why Denmark 10 years ago chose to go for DGNB certification, because it has a very holistic approach. And we see, like Lotta also said in Sweden, that there's been a real increase in the demand for certifications, where we've, during 10 years, it took us 10 years to certify 100 buildings, and now during 1 year, we have a pipeline of 300. But what it's all about with regards to these trends and emerging trends is it's about conversion from fossil fuel energy. So, and that's like you also heard from Katarina, so that from heating and other operations, that's been ongoing. But the newer thing that's really in focus now, it's of course this embodied carbon in building materials that makes out more than 70% of CO2 emissions of the whole lifespan of a building. So, and how to approach this? Well, in Denmark, the trend is, and the general opinion is that we need a material neutral approach. We need to approach this via tools. So it's not to damn one product out of the other, but more to, okay, how far can we go? How aggressive can we get with which kind of approach? So there's a common tool that is actually operated by the building authorities in Denmark and Aalborg Universitet, and that is called LCA Byg. This is for commonly used in the society, and there's a focus here on CO2 emission, but as well as the construction as is. So what is important is that it's both the mass of materials and also the CO2 as such that you have to limit. And we see different business lines in Denmark, the wood industry, the concrete industry, focusing on establishing general EPDs, but also specific EPDs. That is also on the move. We might be lagging a bit behind some of the other Nordic countries, but we're coming into pace now because we see there's a trend for actually needing this EPD on specific product level. So it's about focusing on how can we, for instance, limit CO2 in the concrete and industry and specific products. And you will hear an example later on by Jens Søndergaard Hansen from Unicon. And also, well, how can we introduce more wood in the load-bearing structures as well? Then, as you heard from Matti, well, there's the politicians coming on board now. There's this general saying, well, industry is the head and politicians are the tail. That was actually Barack Obama saying these wise words. Well, that's what we're seeing now. The politicians are coming now. They can see the industry is pushing. We can actually be more aggressive. We can be more ambitious. So as you heard from Matti, by 2023, there will be limits to CO2 emissions from new buildings above 1,000 square meters. And there will also be requirements for LCA calculations for all new constructions. What regards to other emerging trends, you've heard them before, I think. Well, they are also influencing the market in Denmark. The Green Deal from EU, of course, as being a member for many years now. Here we actually see now the EU taxonomy tapping in with pension funds and what have you as perhaps the first movers, but that will be widely spread. We expect that the taxonomy will kick in. So the idea behind the EU of follow the money will actually be a very strong way to go. And we also see renovations in Denmark being more and more in focus, but also what is the embodied carbon in the materials that we introduce when we renovate. It's good to renovate. We keep we do not demolish as much, but what do we actually introduce into the buildings? We have to focus on that too. And also a focus is on life cycle costs, but that's more on the emerging side. So as I said, LCA and CO2 emissions is really in the spotlight now, where we need to get further, and we can do it because we have the whole value chain on board. That was all from Denmark.
Hello everyone, greetings from Green Building Council Finland. I would like to highlight the voluntary sustainability actions carried out by our industry. As we heard before, the Ministry of Environment has worked and works actively towards regulation. But the voluntary actions, I think, is something what we need to also emphasize. So basically, all major real estate owners, developers, and construction companies are strongly focusing on learning what this embodied carbon aspect means for their business. They are collecting benchmarking data. They are increasingly rapidly learning and organizing training programs for the workers, for example. They are implementing these CO2 calculation methods and practices to their internal processes. They are setting project-based targets and learning how to optimize both embodied carbon emissions, but also costs, which is typical, of course. So these are some examples that the industry really works hand in hand with the authorities, I would say, developing the best practices at the moment. And this is also getting wider, meaning that we as a Green Building Council have recently have conversations with workplace designers or interior designers who also want to think that how could they give their knowledge to embodied carbon thinking, and what should they do when we are minimizing these emissions. So that is one thing. Another thing from our market is that at the moment we are feeling that the energy industry works hard decreasing their emissions. So it seems that in 10 years' time, the energy industry in Finland will be able to decrease radically the CO2 emissions by energy production, which means that the energy usage in existing buildings is solved in a way. Of course, it doesn't mean that we don't need to do energy renovations or energy efficient improvements. Of course, we need to focus on those as well. But my point is that, as we heard in first presentation by Katarina, the energy mix is getting rapidly better here in Finland as well. So it emphasizes the role of focusing in construction phase and embodied emissions. Wood construction is something which is what we are learning in our industry. So basically, every major construction company has their own project, ongoing projects, both on residential and commercial side, where hybrid buildings or wood construction is being developed. Even though at the moment it's not the mainstream yet, perhaps, but we are seeing or perhaps hoping that it will be developing fast in years to come. And the last thing, what I would like to add from our perspective is sustainable infrastructure. So at the moment, we don't have currently much knowledge how to calculate the CO2 emissions in infrastructure project, or we don't have existing practices how this should be done systematically, for example, in public procurement or such. But recently, there's huge interest by the local authorities, by the companies, the consultants and such, to learn that how embodied carbon emissions should be taken into account in infrastructure project during the whole life cycle of those. So that is something I think that also Nordic collaboration should be focused, and there's probably much to learn from you, our neighboring countries. Thank you, and then we are heading to Iceland, and Thorhildur, please.
Hi, thank you so much, Mikko. Very nice to be here with you today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the leading initiatives in Iceland. I think when you mention initiative in Iceland, it's very important that we start in the beginning and we mention the important initiative of the Government Construction Contracting Agency, or Framkvæmdasýslan. And they started using BREEAM more than a decade ago in Iceland. And they started then by using BREEAM, they introduced life cycle assessment, energy calculations into the market, into the consultants, into the contractors, developers. And this initiative, they kind of paved the way for others, since we are getting the know-how and the experiences from those early projects. And of course, they are also continuing to show leadership in the sustainability issue in the Icelandic building sector. Another very important initiative is from Reykjavik City, and they are participating in a project called Reinventing Cities. And this is also, it's a site competition on green sites. And it's pushing our advisors, it's pushing also our construction developers to think creatively about innovative climate-friendly solutions to our green building sector in Iceland. And I have to also, like Matti mentioned a little bit, the Housing and Construction Authority in Iceland, or Húsnæðis- og Mannvirkjastofnun, they are now working on a green roadmap for the Icelandic building sector. And we are very excited about this, and this is going to be launched in the summer. And this is also part of the action plan for climate from the government. I also want to mention, of course, we see market initiatives, and we see two of our large building manufacturers, like Steinull, they have been making EPDs, or environmental product declaration, quite recently. Steinull is one of the key insulation producers in Iceland, and also we see BM Vatnalá, they are a very large concrete producer in Iceland. They've also now created EPDs, or environmental product declarations. And also from our main concrete producer, BM Vatnalá, they've also had now an inspiring goal that they are aiming for zero emission from all of their activities by 2030. And this is also having a spiraling effect into the market. What we also see is that building material sellers are providing more and more information on the environmental impacts from their products, like Biko and Húsasmiðjan. And this is also just gaining momentum more and more talk about EPDs, and the Framkvæmdasýslan uses it in the project and the BREEAM. So we see the key, it's running out the whole value chain. And also, of course, here my colleagues have also mentioned timber, and we have also seen in Iceland increased interest in building with timber. And we are going to hear more about timber in Iceland from Vistbygg later today. But these are some, of course, I could talk for much more time. There are lots of exciting things happening in Iceland, but thank you so much. And I look forward to hear the rest of the speakers. Thank you.